Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited today. My guest, who I hope is going to be a frequent guest, is a gentleman that I met at the Australian Paracon, I think it was 2 years ago, and he is known as the occult collector. There has been a documentary done on him under that same name, and he also has a show called The Occult Collector on thehauntedSpace.com. He has obviously, he collects things from the occult. He has a wall full of Ouija boards. He has a Siamese two-headed turtle and the skeleton of a dead prostitute in his house. And in case you couldn't tell from that, he's the son I never had. Please welcome Calvin Von Crush. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. I can't wait to talk to you. I want to focus on one thing with you because you did the best talk at that Paracon, and I was so fascinated. I want to focus on hoaxes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
So that when you, first of all, tell me, well, I guess we have to start with a prostitute because that's everybody's favorite thing, right?
Yeah, who doesn't love her?
I know. So of course, everybody has a prostitute joke or something like that. And I'm just like, what are the health standards as for getting skeletons of people in your house? Like, how did that work?
Believe it or not, I bought her on eBay.
No. On Craigslist, they're alive. On eBay, they're dead. Okay.
Right.
So somebody was advertising this, or how did it happen?
All right, so I've had Monique in my family, so to speak, for 6 years, maybe 7 years.
Okay.
And back 7 years ago, you could sell skeletons on eBay. They've since made it illegal. But Monique actually is unique in that she has history to her. A lot of skeletons, you don't ever get to know who they were, what they did, things like that. And
that's probably what they stopped is the sale of skeletons without a story behind. That is a little bit creepy.
Well, but not her story makes her ineligible for sale on eBay. So it said that she was murdered by another sex worker. And eBay forbids the sale of anything related to a violent crime. So I messaged the seller and I said, hey, eBay might pull this. If it does, drop me a line. I still want to buy it. And as soon as they said, hey, thanks for the heads up, we'll save your number, I reported the item myself and got it kicked off. So they had no choice but to sell it to me off. So,
I was going to say who reported it, but look at you making your own future just like that.
Yeah. So, she's, like I said, she's a member of the family. Anything that gets a name never gets sold, you don't sell your family members. So, she's been in the house ever since.
And
it's actually the strongest female relationship I've ever had, Karen.
Well, you're working on it. You're working on getting better. Yeah. Did she, what was the story behind her? How did this person have her?
Right. So I never really got into that, but there's a tag that came with her tied to her arm.
Okay.
And it lists previous physicians that she that have had her in their care, and it has a handwritten description of how she came to be. And it says she's from the 1920s, so I'm assuming she couldn't pay for a proper burial, and her body was just donated to a medical school, and that's probably what they did for a class presentation was they assembled a skeleton. They used to do stuff like that. They'd all get a cadaver and a group would cut the cadaver up. There's tons of pictures of people posed with skeletons and cadavers that they actually prep themselves.
Wow, that makes more sense. That feels a little less seedy.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Somebody just found her in the gutter and put her in their trunk. Probably helped a lot of physicians save a lot of lives.
Oh, good. Well, that sounds much better. That takes a little bit of the creepy out of it. And,
right.
So when you have like a psychic or a medium over, do they feel anything, or it kind of sounds like she's not around there?
I don't think I've ever really had anybody over who strongly identifies as a psychic or a medium. I've had a couple people over who think they're sensitive, and nobody's ever got a weird vibe from her.
Yeah, that seems like whatever just from the history of that, it seems like whatever it was, probably if there was stress, it was a while ago or something like that. But, and you, I say, are a non-believer, or I would say more on the cautious side. Like you are the biggest skeptic I know.
Oh, thank you. That's a compliment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you and I sometimes will argue about things, but you really, you're the best debunker.
I try, and I always think, whenever there's a human element involved, instead of jumping to the paranormal, we got to look at the human a little bit more.
And I go right to the paranormal.
Right.
Everything's a demon, Calvin.
I think the thing that really sets me apart from most skeptics is I'm not just pounding keys and talking shit on the internet. If there's something going on, or there's somebody who says that they have something that's haunted, or they themselves are haunted, or they have an ability, like, hey, let's grab a beer. I want to see this shit,
Yeah. And, and I joke about that because I'm always the first one to go in, but, I just did a women's prison and I took over 600 pictures and zero. So I'm not, I like to investigate from the other side and feeling sensitive, but I really always appreciate the way you go at things. And now, okay. So Monique, everyone insert your prostitute joke there. We're all done with that. I actually tried to get a hold of Sonia to tell us about your two-headed turtle.
Oh, is that why you asked me for that picture the other day to show Sonia? I knew you were up to something.
Yes. And she got sick though. So we're going to have to continue that to see because at first you see that picture of it and you go, ooh, and then you look closer and you're like, that's a cute little turtle.
They're adorable. They got beautiful eyes, just like their dad.
Do they, how do they walk with the two? There must be a video of it somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah, there's videos on the internet, and I can send you a little one, too. I'll put them on the table and let them run around. So The way it works is one's a little bit bigger than the other, and he pretty much makes all the decisions in the relationship because he's strong. So the other one's just along for the ride.
Okay, so the other one has to manipulate mentally if they want something. He wants something.
Let's face it, that's most relationships anyways.
It is, and everyone has to know their power.
Right.
So that's great. So now, also, before we get to the hoaxes, wall full of Ouija boards. Is that just like you go in looking for something, you just find them, they find you? How does that work?
It's constant work. I mean, I work full time as a tattoo artist, but when it comes to, the paranormal and stuff like that, I also contribute a lot of my time to the Talking Board Historical Society. And anybody who wants to know a little bit more about that can go to tbhs.org. But I've been very passionately interested in Ouija boards since a very, very young age. My family always had spooky stories about them. And I always wanted to kind of test the waters and see if any of the stories were true. And thus far, everything's been debunked by me.
Wow.
I've got to have probably close to 100 at this point, Karen.
Wow.
Everything on display that you can see, those are like my old antique ones. And I really prefer the ones that are handmade, the ones that because the handmade ones are usually somebody made it for the direct purpose of using it. Just because something's an antique doesn't mean somebody ever used it. It could have been sitting in a box for years and years. But the ones that are handmade, these are usually the ones that somebody cared enough to use.
Right. And wood is also, you can be the science end, I'll be the metaphysical end. Wood is very absorbent of energy and things like that. So probably it was also used, I would say if somebody's making that, they're probably trying to contact a particular spirit.
I can't attest to that because some of these don't really have any story to them. A lot of them I just get as is, because somebody saved it because it looked like folk art or anything like that. I think I only have, 3, maybe 4 Ouija board pieces that actually have a backstory to them. Everything else just is there because it looks nice.
Oh, wow. Tell me one with the backstory.
I think you made a joke the other day on your podcast about somebody playing. Oh no, it was you used Scrabble instead of Ouija, right? Was that on your video on Facebook?
Yeah, that was on my web series, Paranormal Karen.
Okay, so when you said that, it actually resonated because I have a planchette. That planchette is the thing that moves on the board, but it was by an older woman, and she would lay out Scrabble tiles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, I got to tell Karen that. So yeah. That, and I actually have a little picture of the lady who used it. When I bought it from her grandson, he threw in a picture of her, so I have them both on display. I have another Ouija board that was made out of a painter's palette, and that actually comes from Lilydale, and Lilydale is in upstate New York. That's the city where it's filled with psychic mediums.
And they're all fenced in, right?
What's that? Oh, no. You have to pay an admission to get in, but it's right on a lake. It's beautiful. If you haven't ever been there, you definitely need to take a trip.
I should go, but I just, it always sounded, I don't know, it always, not creepy at all, but it seems like it's all, somebody told you have to pay to get in. I don't even pay tolls.
I think that's only if you want to park. If you want to park the car, you got to pay to get in. But if you just want to walk in on foot, I think you're good. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's good. And it's interesting that I don't know if people always know you can just make your own Ouija board. I mean, isn't that what people did?
Oh, absolutely. The one I'm telling you about, the painter's palette, it's literally just written in pencil.
Wow. That's
yep.
Weren't the kids doing something like that? Wasn't that the hip thing a little while ago? Oh, no, it was a pencil thing. What was the craze?
That was called Charlie, and it was just yes or no questions. And that was actually created as a viral marketing campaign for a horror movie.
Oh, really? And I'm guessing that movie did not do that well since I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I think it was about kids getting lost in the Paris catacombs. I think that's what it was for.
Great. That was a great promo. I have to hire their marketing people.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more stuff like that with the paranormal and marketing campaigns created to scare people to draw attention to something. Because
that was the Zozo also, right?
Zozo is actually created as part of a phenomenon that happens when you play with a Ouija board.
Oh, so it's a collective energy? Whoa. Oh, Jesus. Somebody just dropped off a package at my house and slammed the door just as I asked you about the Ouija board.
Okay, so from the science point of view, how a Ouija board works is something called the ideomotor effect. Mm-hmm. It's your body creating a response that your consciousness is looking for.
Okay.
And one of the simplest motions is a back and forth motion that that your planchette creates while it's on the board, and it slides from the Z to the N, and it's easy to mistake that for the O, spelling out Zozo.
Oh, okay.
It also happens with Mama, M-A-M-A. So that's very, 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 very common to happen because it's just your hands making that motion without you realizing it. And people misconstrue it for an entity named Zozo.
That's interesting. So that's where that started. I always think there's that's like when people use a pendulum. Like I never use a pendulum because I honestly believe I can make it go however I want.
You're 100% right. It's the same thing, the ideomotor effect. The automatic writing planchettes with the pencil and that game, light as a feather, stiff as a board. That's also ideomotor.
Oh, well, back on, you would know that I was moving the Ouija board because the words would be spelled wrong. Because my subconscious can't spell either. You just segued into, what was the other one? The second one?
Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Tell me how that works, because I've never done that. I've never done the Bloody Mary thing. When you do that light as a feather, stiff as a board, do people really lift up?
Well, you're lifting them because your hands are under them, and it's supposed they're getting lighter and kind of levitating. But it's really because you're expecting them to move, and you're lifting them without realizing you're lifting them.
Okay. Well, I thought you were supposed to do that with 2 fingers.
Right. I mean, if everybody together is doing it, eventually you're going to feel like they're moving and stuff like that.
For some reason, that reminds me when I went to a yoga retreat, and this doesn't sound like yoga at all, but they made us go up a ladder, and then you're supposed to fall down and let the group catch you.
Oh, yeah, trust falls.
Trust falls, that's what it was. And I was the only person that was like, yeah, let's do it. People are crying and stuff. And I'm like, all right, I trust you guys, because I trust anyone because I'm an idiot. But I always think that was kind of the same thing. Like, it's just how you do it, right?
Yeah, I think the more people you have, the more likely you are going to get that reaction. It's just like Ouija board. If you play with another person, you've got a better chance of it moving.
Okay, so when someone's on a Ouija board, and now maybe you just haven't seen this, but they get an answer that is not like, we're not looking for Aunt Mary, and it comes up something very different, which is usually the way the best ghost stories start, or the kind of the, I shouldn't say best. I should say when people have really had scary stuff happen, that has happened through a Ouija board. They were not getting the answers. You know what I mean? Like you would expect, like, does Steve like me? Yes. Or, because it's usually young girls. They seem to have a propensity more to this than boys. But when you get something like that, like if you were to sit down and get information, we did I think the people that listen to this podcast are used to how I speak by now, Calvin, that it starts a half a sentence, you get another half a sentence, and then I get to where I'm going. When we did an investigation in a old bed and breakfast in Pennsylvania, I went with a friend. We used that thing, and it's a hoax. It's the ghost radar, right, that says words. And it said a word that we could not figure out that ended up being a last name of the original owner of the inn. So when something like that happens, I think that's kind of interesting. Like, have you ever been in a situation like that, or you just hear other people's stories like that?
No, as a non-believer, I don't regularly mess with this stuff. The only time I ever do it is if I'm doing a lecture or if I'm helping out at a paranormal convention. And we usually do an experiment where we'll take a word and we'll write it on a Post-it and we'll stick it on the bottom of a Ouija board and we'll see if anybody can guess it. We'll usually give them a clue like, hey, it's going to be a color, or hey, we're going to give you a 4-digit number combination or something like that. And you'll see so many times nobody gets it. Even if somebody claims to be psychic, they don't get it. I think a lot of times if people go into a Ouija board session and they're scared,
yeah, you got trouble.
They're going to do scary things.
Yeah.
As part of the TBHS, we find all these things where people use Ouija boards and they believe they're speaking to extraterrestrials and things like that. Like we found a cult that was connected to extraterrestrial communication that was using a Ouija board-like device.
How come I never find those cults?
I know. I mean, you're in LA. I mean, that's the right place for it, right?
And they would love me. They would be like, she's all in. Just get Nutter Butter cookies because they're vegan, and I would show up. That's interesting that they thought aliens. What was the basis of that? Maybe we're just going to talk Ouija boards all night, Calvin. This is so interesting.
It's what you think you're getting out of the Ouija board session. And Karen, that's the reason why Ouija boards are so popular and have such a long history, is because it really works thanks to the science of the human mind. It is something different for every single person who uses it.
Wow. Yes, and I'm not a fan of the Ouija board, so I'm not speaking from experience. I don't tend to. In fact, I got to tell you a funny tarot card story. I don't tend to. Maybe because I have heard so many awful stories about it, I have no interest in it, and I sort of don't recommend people do it, because whether my side of where I think it can open up and bring things in, or your side, which is somebody going in scared, might do something that will scare them. Either way, I kind of feel like it's not the greatest tool. I know they say know the people that you're with, or know how to cleanse the board, or whatever that is. But to me, it's just something that I'd rather hear you talk about it. You could be the first one to find a demon and tell me you're wrong. How about that? Oh,
I wish, Karen. Demons are welcome here. We don't kill spiders at my house, and we don't banish demons. So,
okay. Well, watch out what you wish for, because I'll send you a fairy. because you know my fairy attachment story.
Oh, yes, that one.
Isn't that a good one? I just told it the other night at something, and sometimes I can't tell if people are enjoying it or they probably think I'm crazy either way, but sometimes they're like, what is she talking about? Talking dogs. That is one I want to do though with your turtle, because I really want to see what Sonia says. She's about as accurate as I've heard anyone be, and that's with health issues or anything with my dog. Do you have any scientific feelings on that, or you haven't seen it really work yet?
As far as what, psychic communication?
Animal communication.
Animal communication. Okay, not as far as how Sonia does it, because I think she's a little bit more deeper into the woo. You know, if she can remote in and talk to the turtle from LA, that's a little far out.
Well, she's in Florida, but she can.
Oh, Florida.
But I think that, not that closer makes a difference because she'll still be on the phone, but that's why, I don't know if I have an answer for that, because people call me and ask me, do I do readings over the phone, which 90% of my readings are over the phone. And sometimes I feel like they are better readings over the phone because there's no interaction. There's no smiles. There's no, rolling of the eyes or whatever people do during readings. So I can kind of just read what I get with a really clear stream of consciousness. So I think she does that the same way. But I know that people say energy, the matrix, that energy is the same no matter what the distance is. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see what she says about your turtles. We'll have a follow-up for that.
Yes. So as far as like being physical in the presence of an animal, are you familiar with Temple Grandin? Temple Grandin, I believe, is somewhere on the autism scale. She's very, very high functioning. And I believe she's a doctor in veterinarian science.
Oh, the HBO did a movie on her, right?
Yes. Okay. So I feel that because of her disconnect with human emotions, she can read animals a little bit better. Because people can be deceitful with their emotions. You can have somebody smile right to your face and hate your guts, but animals don't do that.
Right.
So I think they're a little bit easier to read. So I do think to a certain extent, we can't communicate with animals. But I tell you this a lot with psychics, though, especially giving a reading in person. I think there's so much more that goes on with the human body than we want to care to admit. Whether it's pheromones, whether it's just a subtleness in the eyebrows and stuff like that. And some people are just really good at reading other humans. That always reminds me of an old joke because people throw me off. So I actually sometimes will close my eyes. And this is the joke. There was an old comedy story about Milton Berle. And he's doing this show and he's killing. And in the front row, this woman is shaking her head no. And he's doing everything and everybody is laughing and she's shaking her head no. He becomes obsessed with her. After the show, he goes out to find her. He puts his hand on her shoulder. She turns around and looks at him, and as she shakes her head no, she goes, "You are the funniest person I have ever seen." So literally that was her reaction, was to be like, "Oh no, that is so funny." And he was reading it as someone. And so sometimes it's very interesting. I'd rather have the energy alone because I can become self-conscious, which is wrong. Or like I said, people's reactions are, you're right about that. When it's in person, sometimes you can do that, but it actually throws me off to have that happen. So I put my head down when I read. But Sonia has done, we'll revisit after the turtle, but so I'll say to her, courage is moving really sluggish. Well, this was the other thing. This is even simpler. I don't like to use the flea medicine, and I'll go, "Is there a flea on him?" And she'll go, "I'll go under his left pork chop." That's what she calls the back leg. And I will literally
roll him over and lift off the left pork chop, and the flea will crawl out. Like she has let me know when he had gallstones, when he never had gallstones before. She says she'll be on the phone, she can't even see him, and she goes, I think a bee stung his left paw. What's going on? So we'll get to that though when we have some proof, and you can either say, well, I thought, or you'll be like, oh my God, now I have to ask all the animals what they think of me.
Hey, so you think if I put like a little index card with a 5-digit number on it and I tape it to the tank so they can see it every day, if she'd be able to relay it back?
You know what? We can try that, but I don't think it's that clear. I think they show her, although I will say she did have a cat that showed the lady who she showed. So the lady had her house broken into, and Sonia asked the cat who it was, and the cat described the uniform. So the animal would have to recognize numbers. Okay, so if the animal doesn't recognize numbers, but say you had, they never eat lettuce, and you put lettuce in there, that might be something. Because
oh yeah, they hate their vegetables.
Oh, so they're like the rest of us. So it would have to be, you would have to take it from their point of interpretation. That's why, like, when she and I are looking for lost animals, which we don't really do that much anymore because it's so long and so intense, you want to just go, can he tell me the name of the street? But they can't read. We forget they can't read.
Right.
Yet, she will get symbols. She has gotten logos. Does anybody have this triangle that has a deer head in it or something like that, whatever it is? So if we can think of something and plus we'll have to see how well the communication is with the turtles.
Well, yeah, because there's 2 heads. Which one is she going to talk to?
See, that's the part that's interesting. I want to know if that's actually 2 different souls or 1 soul.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely 2 different because they have 2 totally different personalities, Karen.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, one's really mean. He's full of piss and vinegar. He tries to bite me. And the other one will let you hold his hand and pet him and everything like that.
Wow. It's like being with a woman, isn't it?
But you're not kidding.
I can tell that joke. You can't.
I know. I can agree.
Or else you'll get bit. So, okay, well, let's go. You know what? Actually, let's take a quick break for our sponsors and come back. And I want to finish up on Ouija boards because that's so interesting. People always ask me where I get my crystals and beautiful gemstone jewelry. And I tell them I go right to GaiaSpirits.com. Gaia Spirits Gift Shop has everything from crystals to singing bowls, and they also offer readings, Reiki, gift certificates, and home blessing services that fit everyone's budget. My friend Robin Celine has years of experience with crystals, so if you're not sure what you're looking for, she is always right there to help. They even have crystal packages to help with house cleansings and getting rid of some of those pesky ghosts. I get so many compliments on my black tourmaline necklace Robin suggested for grounding, and so far I haven't floated away yet. As a special gift for my listeners, use coupon code ParanormalKaren and receive 10% off your first purchase. Again, use coupon code ParanormalKaren, all one word. GaiaSpirits.com, where I go for all my crystal and gemstone needs. Okay, so let's go back to Ouija boards before I cut you off and went into Milton Berle, which is just a segue everyone makes, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
We're not going to talk about the size of his penis. We're going to talk about a Ouija board, which was the rumor forever. Yeah, that he until Jack Nicholson came along, he was supposed to have the largest package.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, see,
the things I never needed to know. Thank you, Karen.
I know. Now you're going to have Milton Berle prison dreams.
Yeah, if I get haunted by the ghost of Milton Berle's penis, we're going to have a problem.
Well, you never know. I don't know if that was true. I shouldn't have brought it up, but that's what every comedian
brought it up.
All right. No puns. We're all done with Milton Berle. He's been condomized. So more, do you have any more stories with Ouija boards where you got them? Or do you ever have a Ouija board where someone was like, we just want to get rid of it. It's been bad mojo?
So as the TBHS, at the Historical Society, we actually do a Ouija board donation program where if anybody has a troubled board, they can send it to us.
Oh, nice.
Now, I actually had one given to me because somebody had it in the back seat of their car when they got into a car accident.
Oh, well, that if I'm driving, that doesn't matter how many Ouija boards are in the back. We're probably going to have a car accident.
Little things like that. I mean, every once in a while we'll get somebody who's just like, oh, yeah, it scares my kids. I want you guys to take it. And then we get people who are full on having like psychological breaks.
Oh.
And they're just looking for anything in their life to attribute it to. And sometimes they attribute it to a Ouija board.
But I think sometimes if that's what they believe and then they get rid of the Ouija board, maybe they do change their luck or they see things differently.
We had a lady who really got out of control and was blaming everything in her life on this poor Ouija board. She said her kids got taken away by the state because of it. She was losing her job. And she sent it to us like in a pound of salt. Like she thought salt would stop anything from getting out of the box in transit. And then after we got it, she was convinced that getting rid of it was actually what caused all of her problems.
Oh, that's
so, I really think most things in the paranormal, 99.9% are all psychological. If there is anything real in the paranormal, you have to weed through all of that stuff before you can get to any concrete evidence. Because let's face it, the paranormal is in everything, especially Ouija boards. They're inundated in pop culture. And I think people are relying on all that readily available information about how bad they are to determine what's going on with them versus digging in history and finding a little bit more and seeing that they weren't ever intended to be a horrifying thing.
Right. And you know what? That's sort of that. And that's the human argument. Like, I really do think there's a lot of people that, I don't really consider myself an empath. I understand other people are, but I'm not that in tune. I sort of like my tarot cards and that's what I do. Sometimes I'm in tune. Sometimes when I'm cleansing houses and stuff, I can do that. But I had an experience in my apartment here. The lady that lived before me had a cat, and that cat rubbed up against me like I thought it was courage. And I was like, why is he doing that? And it was so real. So I think sometimes when people have their own experiences, that is just something you can't prove. It's just whatever's going on with them. But I do have a lot of people that call me that either think they're cursed or a lot of and I think this is where money gets strange. Someone will call me and I can obviously tell they're schizophrenic, but they're sure there's a demon attached or something like that. And then it's really hard because I do believe that person is hearing voices and that person is hearing things, whatever it is that happens with schizophrenia. It's even different than someone that doesn't want to take responsibility for their life.
Right.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to Ouija boards, when I'm doing a presentation or anything like that, and I talk to somebody afterwards, I remember one time we opened up for Chip Coffee. We did it at the Mark Twain House and Museum here in Connecticut, and a couple members from the TBHS had brought Ouija boards to put out and talk to people and get the crowd kind of going. And a family came over, and they were upset that their daughter hadn't come through. And from my point of view, I don't think we ever get to talk to somebody again. I really think that when we die, we just rot in the ground. And I really have to be sensitive to that. I know there's so many skeptics out there who just want to tell people to get over it. But I know there's that human element attached to these things, and you have to kind of handle it a little differently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I sometimes forget like how death to me looks. I think I'm excited to see what's on the other side. And sometimes I'll joke about death and stuff, and I'll forget that people are not on that same, people are not as dark as me, Yeah. Everybody knows I'm having a running war with Kaiser. And I put a joke on Twitter, and it said to the CEO, I said, I hope you die a slow, painful death. oh, well, you're with Kaiser, so of course you will. And, and they got me, that was the only one they could get me on, that Twitter took that down for 10 hours. I had to sit in Twitter jail. But to me, that's not, you and I would talk about death or these things like it's nothing. And other people are like, oh, don't even say that in our house. So I kind of forget like you do. But, as on the other side, on the opposite side of you, there's another thing, which is, it's like when someone says, well, why, my friend Wayne Poe made a fabulous movie. And a skeptic had said to him, well, listen, if ghosts are here, why don't they just step forward so we can see them? And it's like, well, we don't know how many have the ability to do that, or if they can do it on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, we assume that they are so far advanced that they're just going to show themselves when they want. And we don't know that, it is kind of like the turtles. I don't know. We have to figure out what the turtles can process first, but it's very interesting that I would think if you wanted, maybe the Ouija board is just not the vibration the daughter was on, and that would not be the way I would go about it anyways. But when you're talking about a child that has passed, that is that's a real touchy place to go. It's kind of odd that they would go to a paranormal convention and expect that. But even so, I'm with you. We forget. We're like, hey, who made it over? I'm like, who's having a good time on the other side?
I mean, you do the same thing where you meet so many paranormal investigators, and I see a very, very common thread of middle-aged people who are investigating, especially couples, spouses who have lost a child.
Yeah.
And I think the paranormal is a coping mechanism for a lot of them. So when I come out as a skeptic and say, this is it, guys, there are no ghosts and everything like that, for them, that's almost like attacking their faith, attacking their hope, attacking, the chance that they're ever going to see that child they care again. And they lash out. And it sucks that I can't just have a normal conversation where I say, hey, can you think about maybe there is a chance you're never going to see them again, because they've already made up their mind. We have the choice. We have to find a way to talk to our kid again.
Right. And you know what, too, though? I think it is the way we talk. But you are probably the most skeptical. But I also feel like you're open because we had conversations where you have never discredited me or made me feel offensive. And some skeptics will really just, their answer is, well, that's because you're nuts.
Okay, so we'll touch on that, and especially we're going to touch on mine and yours friendship and relationship and how that works. But I do think a lot of skeptics associate belief in the paranormal with intelligence.
Yes, and I'm not saying I'm not nuts, because we'll both know I am, just not in this particular area.
Right, so they automatically assume if you believe in ghosts or you believe in Bigfoot or you believe in UFOs or even if you believe in God, you are an idiot and you're not as smart as them.
Right.
And I was probably guilty of that maybe 10 years ago, but now after having so many conversations and making friends with actually people who regularly hunt ghosts or regularly believe they talk to the dead, I realized that you can separate that and still have a meaningful relationship and friendship with someone.
Right. And I can see you having an experience and going, you know what? That was all wrong. I got to say, what happened was really weird, and I'm correcting myself.
Right. And I 100% agree. But here's the bad part, too, is I don't think anyone's ever going to believe me if I do see a ghost.
Why do you think that? I would believe you.
Right, I know you, but see, that's just, if I ever was out in the woods and I saw Bigfoot, Karen, I have to run that motherfucker down and grab a handful of his hair so I can tell the story. Because if I just tell somebody I saw it, there's nothing to it. And I think...
What makes you say that? Is it because so many of your friends are non-believers?
I'm right in the middle. The more I get deeper into the paranormal, my friend count of believers goes up and goes up. It's because I have put so much pressure on other people who believe to produce concrete evidence that if I don't have the concrete evidence either, I'm just as fallible.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's actually very good. You're holding yourself to the same standard you hold other people to.
Oh, absolutely.
And yet, you enjoyed the podcast with Tommy and Dave, and found them to. You made friends with both of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, Dave. Before we even really had a conversation about the paranormal, Dave was helping me out with some things in the entertainment field.
Yeah, that was he's good.
Tom picked his brain a little bit, and we had a little bit back and forth on Facebook. I mean, even from the start, Karen, I even said to you that the world you live in is far more interesting than the one I live in. And I will literally listen to an intelligent person talk about their beliefs on the paranormal all day. Another good friend of mine, Mark May, this guy has seen a handful of different monsters and felt the presence of ghosts and all this. But he's a teacher and he's an artist and he's an all-around good dude. So we're still able to have that friendship, even though I don't think he's really experiencing these things. I think it's more wishful thinking.
And I believe in this is why I really do believe someday, hopefully on my podcast, you're going to be turned around, because you actually said you met a medium or something like that, and she was saying that you're actually very intuitive and I believe that, and very psychic yourself. And I think
that's a constant theme. That's psychics and mediums that have never met each other or even heard that I'm a skeptic.
Yeah,
I get all the time that I have psychic abilities. A lot of a common theme that I get is that I'm a gifted healer.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. I think it's all in one. I think it's very interesting. I do think you're going to have a breakthrough one day, and then you're going to be Master Warlock Calvin.
That'd be great.
I know we could make a comic book. Tattoo.
Yeah, I don't mind being a necromancer. I guess that's kind of a fitting job title. Do I get business cards for that or no?
Yes, only, but I can't spell it. Only if we can get me to spell it on the Ouija board. That's not going to happen. You know what else is interesting is Tommy knows that I have had trouble with objects, and he always says Ouija boards or anything like that that's trouble, you cover them with a red cloth. And I am always like, why? And he's like, I'm not sure. But it does it, which is really because him and Dave are so scientifically based. Maybe it's the vibration of the color or something. But that's always, when they have something like that, information like that, I'm always like, well, now that's interesting. Also, what I like about what Tommy does and Dave does is all of their answers are like under $5. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Now I want to go into, oh my God, see, we're going to have to have you on back again soon, because all we got to is Ouija boards. Tell me probably what you think are the two hoaxes that you own. I know you own like a ghost trumpet?
I own spirit trumpets, yep.
Spirit trumpets. What are the top two where you're like, really? People fell for this?
Yeah. Spirit trumpets are a big part of the number one, which is ectoplasm production.
Oh, yeah.
There was just, I believe there was a gentleman who just got caught coming out of a spirit cabinet and moving around a room. And he said he could produce ectoplasm and stuff too. But, so many of these people that were producing it were women, and the main reason it was women was because they had more orifices to hide ectoplasm in.
Oh, that's funny. I just did a Paranormal Karen from the web series in a women's prison, and I said that women didn't bring in contraband. They wouldn't put it in their rear end because it made their butt look big. So I can't imagine what ectoplasm does.
There was one woman, I think it was Mary Marshall. She manifested a hand, and it was actually cut out of meat.
Oh.
So imagine just, that's one-upping Lady Gaga's dress of meat. She's just taking that meat glove and stashing it away.
Wow. And what do you say when you pull out a hand of meat? Or was she saying it was something else and then everyone ran out of the room?
Right. It was supposed to be a hand manifesting out of ectoplasm, because they could produce this material from pulling it out of the ether and channeling it through a bodily orifice. It came out of their noses, it came out of their mouth, it came out of their ears. And a lot of times it would attach itself to a spirit trumpet and it would produce a voice box and they would be able to make amplified sound with it.
Wow. See, that's too much work. I think it's very funny because when we talk, well, I guess I don't know, but when we talk in the age of spoof or scams, I always think that when you have psychics or mediums that are not good, or people go, "Oh, that was a ripoff," I oftentimes think that is someone that really, not a criminal that wants to take your money. It's someone that really wants to be psychic and just doesn't put in the work of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think as many phonies as there are people that are hopeful. And I know every once in a while I've given back money because I've been like, I remember a woman came here and I was like, sometimes it's harder to read someone who's crazy, okay, or really shut down. Like, she was almost like, I do taxes and I don't leave the house and this, and I got 3 times from the cards, "You're leaving this job. You're leaving this job." And she kept saying, "No, no, no." And I was like, well, either she's not being honest or I can't read her. So I gave her money back, which rarely happens, but sometimes you just can't connect. But I think when people think there's a whole lot of scams out there, they don't understand how hard it is to actually get a psychic business running to the point that you're making money.
Well, so I get asked by other skeptics that I'm friends with, why am I friends with those people? And they're talking about ghost hunters. They're talking about, tarot readers like you, other people who are psychics. And it's because I give everybody the same chance to be my friend that I do people who don't believe. And the reason why me and you are friends is because I believe in your heart of hearts that you really do think you're helping people and you live, eat, and shit the paranormal. You live in the land of woo and you really do believe and you go through the steps to make yourself as better of it as possible. I know there are some people who literally just do it for attention. They want to say they live in a haunted house and things like that. So I have to engage with everybody with the same amount of openness.
Right. People don't understand how many years I have spent studying tarot, that it's not just, I have a friend that just picks it up and is ready to charge people. And I'm like, no, I have years I can explain. But also, but I just really, you really want to believe. And also, you know what? I know I'm going to embarrass you, but I just think you're a great guy. You're an old soul. And also you are, I really do think that you have a smidge, you can tell me, but I think there's a smidge of you that believes and is just ready and waiting to have that experience. And I also think you're a TV show waiting to happen. So if I have anybody that is listening in Hollywood, go check out his documentary and everything, because believe me, when I get in a pitch meeting, your name comes up all the time. But back to that, but I also think you almost go in like a reporter.
Oh, absolutely. And so even though I don't believe woo and all this stuff is real, I do believe the benefits that people who believe in woo receive from believing in woo are real, if that makes sense.
Right.
But, science has gone on record of saying placebo effect is a real thing. Right. So woo in and of itself, especially if there's a whole lifestyle dedicated to it, is still beneficial to the person who fully dives into it and believes it.
Right. And I do eat, sleep, and shit the paranormal, but never a meat hand.
Well, yeah, because you're vegan, of course.
Yes, that's right. But if it happens, I will call you first and you can put it in the museum.
Oh, please. Yeah, put that in a jar. Just wash it off first, Karen, if it comes out of the wrong spot, please.
Okay. So so we talked about the ectoplasm, which is interesting because you know what else is interesting about it is it showed up in pictures forever. And then suddenly no one was talking about it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So all the spiritualist camps have actually forbid physical mediumship within the confines of their communities.
Wow.
It's in their bylaws. And the reason why they say this is because there's so much more incentive to fake it for money.
Yeah. Well, I think long ago, that's almost like a traveling circus kind of thing or a gypsy kind of thing. Because now, believe me, I have friends that are great mediums that can't seem to get their business started. And I'm lucky enough to have been doing it for a while that I build up a clientele that comes back. So I think to be a hoax is pretty hard now. I'm sure there's some out there, but I don't think you get too far if you're going to work at a crystal shop, it takes, I think, 2 complaints before you'd be fired. So, I think in the old days, though, like I said, with the traveling circus or something like that, which was probably my last life, I'm pretty sure. I just like to throw those things in so that I feel your heart drop. Like,
my eyes roll every time.
Because we're always having a great conversation. Then I'm like, hey, I was talking to the tree outside my house. Just to throw you off. So the ectoplasm, I love ghost photography. And I think almost now it's very, very, when people send me their pictures all the time, I feel bad because I'm always kind of that is a reflection. You can see where it folds here. Like I'm kind of the glass half empty with those are orbs kind of thing. But I think the mistake that people also faking them make is what I believe is real ghost photography doesn't look like a person. They don't come through exactly. They don't, I don't know what that is, but I always think I see a lot on Twitter now. I have a lot of people on Twitter that put up ghost photos, paranormal groups. And boy, I'll tell you, some of those with the mists, I really, I know you have to be there when you do proper ghost photography. You take click, click, click. You take 4 to 5 pictures on the same spot so you can tell the difference. But some of them look pretty good. It's the ones that you can tell they come from an app because they're perfect.
Right.
But, okay, so the ectoplasm, which is really funny in old pictures. Well, actually, wasn't that in, what was the movie, Haunting in Connecticut?
Yeah, the kid did produce ectoplasm. And, my next answer to famous hoaxes was going to be spirit photography. So you brought that up right away.
Yeah.
And I do have pictures of spirit photography where there is ectoplasm in the pictures, too.
Okay, and these are the fake ones. Well, of course, because
they're all fake. Yeah. So spirit photography is essentially started in Boston, Massachusetts by a gentleman named William Mumler. And just by chance, he developed a photograph of himself, and there was the ghost image of a little girl sitting in a chair. And he pretty much figured out how to do this double exposure of plates. And he was hiring out-of-work actors and actresses to pose for pictures and then duping people who would sit. And one of the reasons why he was able to do this is because at the time, people didn't understand technology. You could literally not know how to read, but if you can scrounge together enough money to get your photo taken, you could go get a picture of you and a ghost.
That's interesting.
Right. So one of his biggest opponents was actually P.T. Barnum. So P.T. Barnum is famous for producing hoaxes all the time. He had the Cardiff Giant, he had the Fiji Mermaid, but when he had these hoaxes, he didn't sell them as scientific fact and things like that. He always left it as an interpretation for the person who paid. Take a look at my Fiji Mermaid, decide for yourself if it's real or not. Right. So when he saw that this gentleman was selling actual photographs of the dead and giving people this hope that they could commune with the dead and see their dead relatives again, he felt he had to pursue this and stop this person. I just saw a lecture where the guy pitched it that P.T. Barnum was almost jealous, and that wasn't it. P.T. Barnum was a humanitarian. He was responsible for erecting children's hospitals, a number of things. He cared about people, and he wouldn't you've heard that saying, a sucker is born every minute.
Was that not him?
That was not him. That is wrongly attributed to him. He would never.
I know it was Kaiser Permanente.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That might be Kaiser. Barnum would never have said that about somebody. He cared about entertaining people. He didn't want to rip people off. There's a big difference. And when you're selling the paranormal as the real deal, that's not entertaining. That's ripping people off. So he took money out of his own pocket and helped fund the court case to fight it. And believe it or not, he lost.
Oh, really?
So many people came out to testify on behalf of William Mumler and saying they didn't feel ripped off. They were very happy with their product, that he was allowed to keep producing spirit photos.
Now, when they said they were very happy with their product, had they been explained how the double exposure worked?
Yeah, even after the court case, and you could read everything in the paper, people were just like, I don't know. I really think it's ghosts. And a lot of that is what happens whenever I tell anybody the science behind Ouija boards. People will always have that wishful thinking that they really are talking to grandma. It's because it's what they want to believe. You cannot change people's minds sometimes, no matter how much. You can lead a horse to knowledge, but you can't make them think.
Well, I of course take the other side of that I have seen some real rabbits pulled out of hats, so to speak. But, it's interesting with science today. You could fake any photo. Like, I don't know that there's a way now to debunk every photo because there is so much technology to make it right.
You're right, especially with digital photography.
Yeah. So that's still my favorite thing. And when I go on investigations, that's all I do. But I still, to really get those great photos, it doesn't matter. If I go up on the internet, it could be you and I could literally be standing there and your grandma walks in and poses and I take her picture and you and I know it. When it goes on the internet, it doesn't matter. There was someone had me watch, there was a horror movie / documentary, which was not good. And then at the end, the guy's answer was, well, it doesn't matter because you're going to believe what you believe anyways.
Exactly.
And so that was right. But I, it is I do like these phonies though. Like the trumpet, like I saw the trumpet and it's like, who put that together? Who needs a trumpet? Was that a trumpet player that was making some cash on the side? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I believe the first use of instruments to communicate with the dead was by Jonathan Coons' family out in Mount Nebo, Ohio. They actually built a whole spirit room that they would have people come in and sit down, and all these instruments would start playing. And they would even have like spirit hands manifest and everything like that too. But you got to understand, he had a big family, and all these kids would be like in the crawl spaces and banging these instruments. And even the people who would come see these spirit bands, they never said it just sounded like beautiful music. And the excuse was music sounds different to spirits. So it would just loud noises and kids blowing on trumpets and banging drums and shaking tambourines.
Who knew there on the other side there's only jazz?
Yeah, the spirit trumpets that we're speaking of right now are just really collapsible cones. And they were supposed to be seen floating above a room and amplifying sound and everything like that. In fact, a lot of the spirit trumpets have a glow-in-the-dark band. So in complete darkness, you would still see it glow.
Oh, I would love a glow. That's the next thing, glow-in-the-dark band. I need that. I just did one of my paranormal Karens on ventriloquism, and that was actually ventriloquism actually started as people talking to for the dead, correct?
I don't know that. In fact, I do know that most forms of magic were invented to rob people and fool people.
Right.
So,
in magicians, I know a lot of magicians, and the old time magicians have like credos and I remember one magician came up to me and he goes, so listen, when you're reading your tarot cards, when you say something to someone and they go yes, just keep saying that same thing and they'll be convinced. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not how I do it. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, dude, I'm all in. Don't give me any hoax advice. I'm all
Right.
But I actually, that was, you might find that very interesting where ventriloquism started. And I thought, as I said on my web series, I thought, interesting, funerals, a lot more people would go to funerals if they were still doing that. People would be like, wow, Dad looked great, but what was with all the Viagra jokes?
Wow.
So you might find that interesting where ventriloquism started, because it really was, I don't know if they thought they were mediums or they were just speaking for the dead. So there's a hoax in itself with a creepy doll. Okay, one more, and then I'm just taking so much of your time.
Oh, you can take all my time you want, Karen. I enjoy talking.
We have to have you back. You're going to be a regular, because I know I'm going to get emails.
I'd love to.
So any good hoaxes out of the, any hoaxes that you have seen lately in person?
Nothing that I've seen in person. So a lot of people in the paranormal community do something that I like to call gatekeeping.
Uh-huh.
And you'll see this in like some of the big name stars too, where they don't let people get in. And that's one of the reasons why me and you are friends, Karen, too, is because you will literally open every book and every nook and cranny of your life and explain to me how things work to you. And I'll have people tell me, hey, my house is haunted, all this stuff happens, or, they have a haunted doll. And I'll be like, hey, man, let me check this shit out for myself. And then I'm like, no, I don't think it's safe for you to do that and things like that. So there's always some kind of excuse that prevents me from getting in there and seeing it myself.
Oh, interesting. Because some people that's on my side, when we talk about people having attachments or things with them, sometimes it makes them feel special.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of that, I've seen that. My ex-girlfriend's sister, the first day I ever met her, gave me a psychic reading before she knew that I was a skeptic and I was into all this stuff. And it never brought up again. But yeah, she like sucked evil out of me, like put my hand up to her nose and breathed deep and said I gave her some of my evil, but not all of it. And I've never seen that again in the psychic world. So kudos to her for pulling that one off.
Yeah, that was I never heard that there you go.
I think she had just seen Green Mile, so.
Well, because I do think people are more, what I will catch is sometimes every once in a while, because and you've heard me do my readings, I do them and I start talking and I just keep talking. And it's like, what comes out. And every once in a while I'll go, does that resonate with you? Or I'll go, I'm on the right track. But I'd usually just talk. And sometimes someone will repeat something back I said. And literally when I read, I don't remember. Like I can read for you for an hour, think it was 10 minutes, and I have no idea what I said. And sometimes I wonder if people heard something different than I said. And that's why I like people to record when they come to my house. I have them record it. So it's all on there. If they call me and say, can I record it on the phone? Absolutely. Please do. And I also, sometimes I put in, if I'm sure about something, I will also say to someone, and if not, I'll give you the 15 minutes free. You call me back if you do not get this job, you call me back. And so I try to do it that way. But I lost my train of thought. I have to stop talking about myself. I have you on here, I can't. I think people are too. I don't want to say savvy, but we have become a very suspicious society. Maybe that's spoof emails. Maybe that's people trying to get passwords, but I think we've become a little more skeptical. So at least the people that want to hear something will maybe not believe the very first psychic that comes along. I hope.
I want to say that though, so it's weird how I don't believe in it, but I will still recommend people to you. If somebody comes to me, they tell me that, they're getting ready to go do a tarot card reading or anything like that. I'll be like, listen, I know you're going to go do this. You're going to find anybody in the world to take your money and do this tarot card reading. at least go to someone who I know isn't just a piece of shit trying to con you out of money. You know, you've given things, Karen, and you have nothing to gain from it at all. You do it just because you're my friend. And I know how you do it and how you treat people. And I know you're not just doing it to boost your own ego or fill your wallet.
Well, thank you. And by the way, I just got new business cards, and on the bottom, it literally says, not a piece of shit.
Yeah, that's great. And if you want me to sign off on it too, I can.
You are so psychic. Well, Calvin, I love talking to you. I could talk to you for hours. We're going to do this again, no matter what. I'm going to force you. Did you see a controlling woman? I told you have no choice in that. One of my favorites, host of the Occult Collector on thehauntedSpace.com.
It's the haunted dot space.
Oh, the haunted dot space. Okay. And I am going to have all these links, anybody that's listening to the links to his Instagram and to the documentary that's already been done on his life. How old are you?
I'll be 35 in September.
Wow. It's too young, just so young, so smart. Then I would have had to have you when I was 15. That's not right. We have to change something.
Yeah, you're not from down south, are you?
No. And so everybody on the web page or wherever you're clicking to listen to this, I have links to his Instagram. It's terrific. The documentary on his life. You want to watch his show live on the haunted.space.com. And thank you so much, Calvin.
Hey, Karen, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. And everybody, paranormalkaren@gmail.com. Send me an email. Send me your ghost stories for future episodes. karenrontowski.com. A special thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media, my producer. There is a link. I now have a sponsor page. If anybody wants to get an ad up or just be a sponsor to the show, you can do that. I think if you want a reading, you can do that all at karenrontowski.com. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Calvin. Until next time, keep debunking, my friend.
Will do. Have a good night.